about 1 in 5 women quit their jobs because they can't keep up. And in many times when you're going through perimenopause, you can be having a conversation with somebody, their mouth is moving, but you cannot understand. You're not even listening. And then you'll be like, I know you are speaking and I don't know what you said. And it is real even for teenagers. So
we'll be talking about perimenopause, menopause, and the impact that has on our wellness in the workplace. This is not a conversation just for the women. We're going to be having a conversation that will affect every person across the genders, every person across their ages. If you are in your 20s, it's coming. If you are in your 50s, it has probably already happened. If you are in your 70s, you're going to wish you had listened to this conversation.
Actually, what happens with perimenopause and then more towards menopause, post-menopause, you lose your filter. So those things that you used to sugarcoat and things, they just come out. And I'll give you an example, or even calling out BS. Empathy is going to be your middle name. Actually, when we talk about the workplace, we prefer to empower the senior management because that's where the pressure comes from.
Hello, Kabugo.
Hi.
So good to see you.
It's good to see you too.
Karibu sana.
Asante.
Yes, I'm excited to be having this conversation. Why? Because it also affects me. This is personal, right? We'll be talking about perimenopause, menopause, and the impact that has on our wellness in the workplace. So this is not a conversation just for the women. We're going to be having a conversation that will affect every person across the genders, every person across their ages, because if you are in your 20s, it's coming. If you are in your 50s, it has probably already happened. If you are in your 70s, you're going to wish you had listened to this conversation earlier. And so you can pass it on to other people. So this is going to be an exciting time. Let's dive right into it. All right? So nowadays, I consider you the menopause expert. I don't know whether that is true or false. Even if not expert, you're a menopause facilitator. What does that entail? Like the conversations you're having, what exactly does that entail?
So let me first clarify. I am a certified menopause practitioner.
There is something like certified menopause practitioners.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm certified by the Menopause Society, which used to be the North American Menopause Society, which was at the time only in the US and Canada. But I think they removed the North American so that they can spread further.
Okay.
So they certify us as medical practitioners, whether you're a pharmacist, a doctor of pharmacy, a doctor, a GP, a cardiologist, a neurologist. And I think what happened was during the COVID season, there was a crisis with menopause. And they realized that we do not have any menopause experts, so to speak.
Okay.
While the gynecologists, they are trained, but very little training. And they spend most of their life doing gynecology and obstetrics and very little menopause. So the Menopause Society took it upon themselves to start certifying us.
Okay.
And we have to sit for tests and we have to continuing education and we have to recertify every so often. So I am a menopause practitioner who is certified as one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Why do you think it wasn't part of the gynecology
because
learning and practice?
I think a lot of it has to do with how we treat people as they age. There's a stigma around it. I also think naturally we were not designed to live this long. So in the past, and even those who did, their lifestyle accommodated menopause and what menopause symptoms would come and whatever. So they had a system that worked that accommodated that. Life is changing. It's a whole different world now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So what is it about our lifestyle now that needs us to be having these conversations?
First, we no longer have the communities that we used to have. Now, if you know anything, a lot of people know something about our cultures, but we had communities, in Kikuyu, we had rikas, and the women that you were born with would carry you through, support you through all these things as you aged. And it would start from when you're a little girl to menarche to childbearing to, so they had systems that worked that supported women, their lifestyle, their diet. And so when people ask, how come all of a sudden people have symptoms or how come all of a sudden they're becoming unbearable, it's because so much has changed in how we live.
Okay.
And so it's becoming more apparent, which even explains why, for example, of course, not in every case, but women in the rural areas have much less significant symptoms than, let's say, women in the Western world. So symptoms even vary by geographical location.
Okay.
So it's a lot to be considered, but that is why all of a sudden we have to start talking, because we don't have those structures that were there.
Yeah.
We don't eat the way we ate then. We don't work the way we worked then. In those times, working was more physical. Now we are more sitting, we are more sedentary. And so that is affecting how we experience menopause.
Okay. All right. So now people have, let me put it this way. Because menopause is being spoken about, there's lots of misconceptions about what needs to be happening. And why I was saying that this conversation is for everybody, not just those going through it, was because a young person once came and asked me, what does this menopause thing entail? Because they have a boss who's going through it. Now, this is a guy who was asking the question and has a female boss who was going through it. And the question was, how crazy does it drive you? Because once upon a time, people used to think, oh, it's just the fans. We're just fanning ourselves all the time. And it became a full industry now. Everybody's walking around with that fan. What is it besides hot flashes that people need to look out for? Not just as the woman going through it, but do you go through menopause or do you go through perimenopause?
So I'll have to do the definitions for you.
We'll define. Then you'll add to that, what does somebody else then look for? Whether it's your boss you're looking at or yourself as a person.
So let's first define the different stages. There's perimenopause, which happens towards menopause. It is the period leading up to menopause. Menopause is a moment in time. It is when you've gone without a period for 365 days. So on day 366, you're in menopause. On day 367, you're post-menopausal. So menopause is just that period, that day, that moment. So why this conversation is important is because you spend most of your time in the peri. Now, peri is the craziest part of it all. And it is when your hormones are starting to decline, and they don't decline nice and gentle in a straight line. And, they
jump off cliffs.
They go up and down and stretch and come back. And, so that contributes to the symptoms that women face.
Okay.
And so when you become post-menopausal, however, you may experience the similar symptoms, but they ease over time. So whatever you're going through in perimenopause, you may experience a little bit longer, usually maybe up to 5 years post-menopause, and then things kind of settle down. So that's the difference in the stages.
Yeah.
What was your question again?
Now, what to look out for? Because we know about the hot flashes and everything else, but what else are we looking out for as the person going through it? And as the person working with somebody who could be going through it.
So some of it, one of the one that scares the most people, most women, is the cognitive part of things. Because all of a sudden you become forgetful, you become irritable, you're not sleeping well. And so especially with this not sleeping well, it spills over into every aspect of your life.
Okay.
So if you're parenting, you become a very difficult parent. If you're a boss, you tend to become a difficult boss. And it's not because you want to. And most times it's not the first thing that comes to your head. You say, oh, I'm snapping at everybody because I'm in menopause. No.
I'm snapping at them because of what they're doing.
And then you're asking yourself, this particular thing they're doing was not irritating me before. How come all of a sudden it's such a big deal?
Yes.
And now you can multiply that by several other different things going on at the same time. And then now you yourself start thinking, I'm no longer who I am or who I used to be. So the cognitive is one that sticks out. For spouses, it is that you're sleeping and this person is not sleeping. Either they're tossing and turning, or they get up and they're on their phone, or they're, but you can tell for the last several nights, this person has not really had restful sleep.
Yeah.
And then of course, like I said, when you're parenting, your children will start seeing like you're having out-of-body experiences, And I think that's the time when people start, you have a teenager, you start threatening to remove their door. You have, because they're not engaging you and not realizing
Yeah.
that they too are going through a transition.
Yeah, because what does it look like to parent somebody who's also going through their own hormonal upheaval?
Exactly. And we don't think about it that way. And I try to encourage parents that now you empathy is going to be your middle name, because as you're going through your unsure, even the brain fog, teenagers go through brain fog, or even the fact that you have to tell your teenager 10 times to make their bed. They're not trying to be defiant. They're not really being defiant. Sometimes they'll tell you, I heard you, but I really didn't hear you. And in many times when you're going through perimenopause, you can be having a conversation with somebody, their mouth is moving, but you cannot understand. You're not even listening. And then you'll be like, I know you are speaking and I don't know what you said. And it is real even for teenagers. So it takes a lot of empathy when you're going through perimenopause and you're parenting. And most times that is the case. You are parenting a teenager too. Yeah. So.
Okay. Where is the space and how? This is a bit controversial. How do you draw the line between those side effects that you're talking about, or those symptoms that you're talking about, and plain bad manners?
Well, are we talking about you self-evaluating or others evaluating?
Both.
Now, for yourself, you will know.
Yeah, for yourself,
like I said,
Yes.
You'll be like, that never used to irritate me. I even liked the color yellow. All of a sudden, I don't even want to see it,
Yeah.
But for others, actually, what happens with perimenopause and then more towards menopause, post-menopause, you lose your filter. So those things that you used to sugarcoat and things, they just come out. And I'll give you an example, or even calling out BS.
Yeah.
I've worked in spaces where, and I hope I don't get in trouble for this, but it is the reality, where you go and you're called, let's say, to... I recently was called to go and have a national conversation about menopause. Okay. Now, if you've ever worked with government or similar, you go there, you give lip service, and then once you leave, that story has issued.
Yeah.
So when you start getting into menopause and post-menopause and perimenopause, that filter. These days you go to a meeting, you're like, you know what? You have just wasted my time and I'm never coming back or whatever.
Yeah.
So the filters drop. Now, when people are used to you being the sweet, accommodating, shallow, and all of a sudden you're calling out BS from a distance, it can get you into a lot of interpersonal conflict with other people. So I think that usually also comes into play when people work in corporate settings and you're supervising people, and 10 years, they say, hey, she never used to be like this. But now the filters are off. And so you will say what you feel and you will feel nothing about it. Because, after all, I used to hear old people say, we've earned it. It can tell you as it is. But you don't realize how many people you're wounding in the process.
How do we then avoid wounding people?
Being self-aware. I was just talking to somebody yesterday and they said, nowadays they call themselves to a meeting. The minute they're about to lash out, they say, wait a minute. First of all, what will happen? What are the effects of what I'm about to say to this person? And in reality, are they behaving in a way that should upset me the way I'm being upset right now? So there are women who are very self-aware, and so they are holding back, and then they, have a moment to calm down. Many women ask to leave, give me a second, then we go out and come back and regroup. But that's the only way, and also for menopause therapy, we do recommend CBT, for those women who kind of are struggling with the symptoms.
Okay. So generally, how much struggle are you seeing? Like, is it a huge majority who are struggling, or now that there is awareness, the struggle is less? Like, has there been any advantage of these conversations that we're having?
Remember, these conversations are very young. And many women are now, those who have heard or who are hearing, are now starting to put the pieces together. Now, one thing I'll tell you is not 100% of women will suffer any of these symptoms. Some of them sail right through. It could be genetic, it could be their lifestyle, it could be, but then you'll also find, we usually say about 20% who are debilitated, then another 40% who are inconvenienced, and then there's another who just cruise through it without any issues. And sometimes it's maybe not very many issues. I don't know if you've ever met somebody who has always been a certain way. Let's say they've always been rude or short or childlike, whatever that behavior, whatever they were like. But then they continue through it without ever knowing the difference. Like, is this now me going through perimenopause, or is it just me continuing my rudeness? I have seen women who have always been rough around the edges,
and so
they
it
just sail
continues
through being rough around the edges.
because first it was a character issue, now it is a hormonal issue, but
and
it's
so
the
it's
same.
just, they overlap.
Okay.
So it just keeps going. So then someone like that will say, I never went through it, which may be or maybe not, you know. But they're the ones who struggle about 20% and struggle like real struggle. And then the others are inconvenienced or it affects them in one way or the other.
How debilitating can it be?
Oh, it can be. It can be. One, remember, depression can be part of it. There are women, in fact, when we talk about the workplace, about 1 in 5 women quit their jobs because they can't keep up. So that is debilitating if you have to quit your job, right? Many can't get out of bed. Many don't sleep, so they can't. You know, like I keep saying, you dare call me for a breakfast meeting, you'll meet by yourself.
Oh, good.
Because my day starts at 11. And I start at 11 because by the time 7 comes around, I will know if I have slept well or I need to sleep in. And then, you know, I know if I sleep in until about 10, I'll be functional. But you see, but corporate culture doesn't usually accommodate that. If we are used to power breakfast, it's power breakfast. And then remember, 10 years ago, you're the one who
was
instilled that structure.
Culture.
And culture. But now you're the one struggling and you have to be there at that 7 a.m. I mean, at the end of the day, will you really love your job?
So you'll quit.
You'll be frustrated, you will quit. And now remember, the people you're in leadership, so the people you're dealing with, they are powering through that power breakfast. You're the one struggling. And then remember, you're also the one maybe even giving the information. It could be a training, it could be a management meeting, you're the one running the meeting. Now, cognitive issues, they have no shame. They show up. So here you are trying to remember a word, someone's name, you start looking very inefficient. And so a lot of women now then feel, I'm no longer useful. And you see, they won't say, they'll say, I haven't slept very well. But they won't say, I think I'm going through menopause. So it is now starting to feel like you're inadequate. And so that is a struggle for many women. So 1 in 5. And
1
then
in 5 is
1 in
20%.
3 wind up cutting back the hours. You know, so if either they change jobs or they cut back the hours just because they can't keep up. So either they'll start doing later, like me. You know, I don't mind working 11 to 8, 9. I'm fine with that. I just don't do mornings very well. So, and many women don't anymore. So you just have to find ways to adjust, especially because we can't quit our jobs. We have children. Some of us waited longer to have kids. You still have school fees to pay. You still have homes to run. And then anyway, you retire and then do what? You know, we no longer go to the shamba with a wheelbarrow. And then now you know, so people need to work.
So talk to that woman now who can't quit, who can't avoid having that power breakfast because, yes, it's a culture that they set in the organization. How do they manage? How do they cope?
Actually, when we talk about the workplace, we prefer to empower the senior management because that's where the pressure comes from. So whether it's male or female, we speak to everybody because she may be able to do, she may be in a position, she may not be in a position to do anything about it. If work culture says 8 to 5, it's 8 to 5. Now, at her level, it would help to talk to her manager and kind of express what she's experiencing. However, you have to have an empowered manager to have anything done. And sometimes there are simple fixes. I find, you know, I've been to an office somewhere in Upper Hill. I went there to give a menopause talk, ironically, but we were on the 5th floor and the toilets were on the 2nd floor. So now you can imagine part of the menopause symptoms. Some women get what we call GSM, genital urinary syndrome of menopause, and which means you start using the washroom more often. You drink a cup of water, you have to go or whatever. So you can imagine going to work. Your commute to work is already dreadful because if you're stuck in traffic, so you're thinking, I'm going to have to use the bathroom between now and my commute to the office. Then you get to the office and you're sitting at your desk and then you're thinking, oh my goodness, every time I need to pee, I need to go down 3 flights of stairs. And then remember, incontinence also may affect others. So with every step, you're just dropping pee. After a while, you're like, I'm not going back to that office, right? So part of the things we negotiate for women in the workplace is, can they get flex hours? Can they work from home? Can they be moved to that second floor so that they're not having to go 3 flights of stairs? But you'd have to express yourself to your manager to be able to be accommodated, and they would have to be open-minded enough to then accommodate you.
Okay. Okay, so that is now management level. How do we get our colleagues either at our own level or below?
It would have to be a corporate decision for everybody to be sensitized. Of course, you can talk to them individually, but I'll give you a story. When I was my first job, I worked at this NGO, and I was the youngest. I was 18 at the time. This lady who I'm going to be talking about was about maybe in her early 40s. And she was always on edge. She was always so short with me. And I remember one time she asked me, those days we didn't have directories. All the numbers were written on a paper on the wall. And she told me, go look on that wall and give me the fax number to textbook center or something. So I went and I read her the fax number. And then she looked at me. First, I think she dialed it or something. And then she said, I can't believe a whole grown girl like you cannot tell the difference between a fax number and a telephone number. Now, I had given her the right number, but her first response was to bite my head off. So later on, she realized she had dialed it wrong. And then I kept asking myself, how can someone live so bitter every single day? She would come, she would sit there by herself, but she was always on a war path and kind of always felt, of course, at that time, I'm feeling like it's me because she wouldn't do that to the older people, right? Or the people at her age. And later on is when it struck me. I said, oh my goodness, that's what she was going through. Oh, because then, of course, she used to keep complaining. She would tell us, open the windows, and then the men in the office would be like, it's too cold, and they're sitting there in their suits and they're uncomfortable. And then she'd be like, no, you need to keep the windows open because I'm hot. And I used to be like, how can she always be hot? I mean, it was a space like this with trees, and how can you always be hot? The rest of us are freezing in there. But now when I think back, I'm like, but she didn't know.
That's the thing.
And I knew and now when I think back, had she known and had she expressed herself with the kind of bosses we had, she would have been accommodated. Do you need a window? Office? Do you need a separate room by yourself so that you're not making everybody else suffer along with you? But she didn't know. So she was just snapping at all of me. Okay, all of us, but I got the brunt of it. But now it makes sense. And I said, I wish she was able to express herself because I think even she didn't last much longer after that. And I thought she was leaving the workplace. She had a young child, maybe 12 or 13. I thought, wow, what is she going to do? Eventually, she got another job, which then accommodated her. So she was working like 6 hours a day or something, but that worked out for her. But it always used to. Then I think she's always the picture I have in my head when I think about women going through it and not having ways to express it.
Yes, not knowing that they're actually going through it. So you were talking about now in the workplace, the juniors needing to know, peers needing to know, senior management needing to know. Now, senior management constitutes people who are also going through menopause.
Yes.
Is policy changing in organizations?
It's very slow. It's very slow. I must say the raising of an awareness is helping because, when you talk about one thing, it opens up other things. Because I've also been invited to talk about andropause, which means women are not going through this alone. The men are also going through it. But do they have safe spaces to speak about it?
Okay.
So when I go and talk about menopause policies, I always bring up the andropause conversation so that we are all unified in what it is that we are trying to achieve. And because women have always, and I think men also struggle with that, women have always lived their life trying to prove they are not hormonal. It's a very tough time for the senior management female to acknowledge. It's a because now, oh my gosh, the mask is falling
Acknowledging
off.
this means I'm accepting that we're actually hormonal.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. So you find that those who resist
with a vengeance.
Those are the toughest to get through because they also can see they're going through something. But I finally admit that my hormones have a role to play in how I show up at work. It's a toughest pill to swallow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like that you have mentioned andropause. And because this is about connecting generations, tell us a bit more about it.
So andropause,
what it is and just
andropause is pretty much what the males go through, which is also the decline of specifically their major hormone is testosterone. Starting about the age of 30, they lose 1% of testosterone every year. So you can imagine by the time they get to 40, they have lost a significant
40%.
amount. 40 plus. No, 1% per year.
Yeah.
So 10%. But you see, remember, it's like compounded interest. So it is 1% today, tomorrow it is 1% of what was left and 1%. Right?
So it's compounding.
So what happens is they have very similar symptoms. Very similar. The brain fog is there. The body changes are there. That's why you get a dad bod and things, you know. Most men, their two legs get skinny. They start looking cold off, and that's their body part. Some get hot flashes.
Wow.
They start having cardiac issues, diabetes. A lot of those are tied into the decline of hormones.
Okay.
Because the hormones have so many different roles in our bodies. Testosterone has so many different roles in our bodies. In fact, even they become osteoporotic, while osteoporosis is more common in women. Men also suffer it because testosterone has a big role to play in bone density. But they also have estrogen and progesterone. So I've had to dispense estrogen to a man before because of the symptoms he was presenting.
Such as?
So everybody has... So this particular man was having issues with his skin. Was very, 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 very dry. What else was he experiencing? His brain fog was pretty bad. He was having hot flashes. But then with him, so we were able to figure out, we tried testosterone, so he had some improvement. Then we're like, okay, there are still gaps missing. So what is it? So we went to estrogen, and estrogen relieved a lot of his symptoms, So it's just that some of, for women, estrogen is dominant. For men, testosterone is dominant. But at the end of the day, we have all of them. We
have percentages of each and every one of those. Okay. So now, who does somebody go to see? Because I'm trying to imagine, if a man is going through such things, how does he tell it is a problem that he needs to be seeing? Do you also sensitize the diabetes doctor?
Well, the diabetes doctor is already aware. However, a lot of times we don't look at it as the whole picture of andropause. So they'll treat the diabetes, they'll treat. But for men, one of the main symptoms they have is erectile dysfunction, right? So what happens is they automatically will go see the urologist. So the urologist will manage, and for many, they'll be given testosterone, they'll be given Viagra, they'll be given. In fact, I say ironically, andropause is the only, the other day I found out menopause also does, but they have a diagnosis, which is hypogonadism, right?
Okay.
But really what hypogonadism is andropause. But as long as they have a diagnosis for it, then they can get treatment and insurance will cover very happily. But women don't have that.
Yeah.
And why? Because it is the same exact thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
But can it be called, what can it be called?
Hypoestrogen. then we remember the end. But yeah, it's there.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think that has just come up the other day as women are fighting for their space in here. It wasn't something that we were taught about.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but I say sometimes it is a man's world because they figured it out, and they got Viagra and they got testosterone shots and they got.
Yeah.
And then women were still trying to find their way.
Yeah. Okay. There's something that you were saying about the bitterness. The example that you gave of the woman who was bitter in the office. What are some diseases that end up coming as a result of not managing perimenopausal symptoms?
So, of course, at that point, stress increases. If every little thing is irritating you, you're not going to have a very peaceful kind of day or existence. So stress levels, cortisol levels go out the roof. Now, what happens with cortisol levels when they go out the roof? Those women who say, at exactly 2 a.m., I wake up and I can't sleep again. That points at your cortisol levels. You're under a lot of stress. Now, that fixes itself for most women later, post-menopause, because you start learning to let things go and stop sweating the small stuff.
Yeah.
But those are the kind of diseases that the high blood pressures and things start checking in. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So now the other one is the other question I have is about the age at which these women are getting into the perimenopause stage. Also happens to be the age at which they are getting to the good heights of their careers. Therefore, need to be on boards and all.
So that is what happens is during perimenopause, most women. So let's first define, when does perimenopause happen? Yeah. Now we say menopause happens anytime between 45 and 55. And perimenopause can happen up to, and for many women, even more, 10 years before that.
So you're saying 35.
Correct. So at 35, she may not be at the top, but she's fighting her way there.
Yes.
Right? Now, perimenopause will usually start subtle. Usually you'll notice a change in your period. Your flow will become heavier or lighter, or change in between months, whatever. So the flow is usually the indicator. And then these other cognitive issues, and they come maybe in the 40s, a little bit later. And now that's when you're now and actually now as you're approaching menopause itself, that's when things get a little hectic. And then right after, like I said, 2 to 5 years after. Yeah. So that those are the ones that come with the senior management level. And I've had patients who come and say, I'm a top scientist at blah, blah, blah. I'm required to present, to research, to write papers, to read voluminous documents. But I can't concentrate beyond the second sentence, or I can't remember half the things I'm supposed to remember, especially when push comes to shove and I'm doing a presentation, it all evaporates. So it happens a little later, not in your 30s, but while perimenopause may start in your 30s, a lot of the cognitive symptoms come a little later.
How does that then affect institutions? Because we understand about the human part. This is how I'm getting affected as an individual. How is the institution, organizations, the companies that we are working for, how are they getting affected?
They are being affected because they are hemorrhaging their best workers. First of all, those with institutional history, those with first of all, they know they are at the level where they can run this, The good thing about getting to that point also, you have a big picture kind of view. You can see something and say, this is just not going to work because I have been here. I know how the ins and the outs of this. So they may not be very good at the minor details and how to make things work technologically and everything. But as managers, they make amazing managers. They have wisdom. And then most institutions will thrive with intergenerational leadership. So what we've been talking about is maybe, as women get into these spaces, and men, is figuring out how to support them to then be even better than they've ever been. Now, we have to embrace that we're not all going to be the same throughout our lives. I don't know that anybody is. So we anticipate that they'll have a peak performance, and then it doesn't mean that it goes down, it changes.
Yeah.
Their role changes.
Mm-hmm.
So is it that we now accommodate them in their different roles and use them as advisors and, like you said, on boards and give them positions like that, as opposed to pushing them out of the workplace?
Mm-hmm.
Because pushing somebody out of the workplace, you're also pushing money out of the economy.
Because the less they earn, of course, the less they'll spend.
So the role of us working towards menopause policies is to see how best to accommodate these people. And sometimes it's as simple as get them an assistant, change their work hours, give them more supervision of broader spaces, as opposed to I'm here managing 3 people who are going to drive me nuts. Let me look at something bigger. So there's different ways to accommodate them to work as long. I say men and women should want to work. If they want to work until they are 70, we support them to do that.
Yeah.
Let them leave because they feel it's time to leave, not because they've been pushed out for feeling unsupported.
Yeah. What are some strengths then that we should be thinking about when it comes to the workplace? Strengths of people who are going through menopause, through perimenopause and post-menopausal.
What do you mean the strengths?
Advantages that they bring.
Like I said, they have institutional history. They have experienced more than anybody else. They have been through, when you look at somebody who's been through COVID as opposed to somebody who'd never been, who is more valuable to you? Someone who understood what that meant and how they pulled through it.
Yeah.
Now you'll find, I find, for example, in the stage we're in right now, the people who are in senior management, they've been through how many presidents, how many economies. They have ways to connect the history and the where we are going.
Yeah.
And, so they are invaluable in that way. And the only thing I can tell you is they have so much wisdom. Like I told you, the filter is off. You don't waste time. You get to
efficiency
the point.
is higher.
Efficiency is much higher.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
All right. History, even based on what you're saying, history has shown that menopause is more punished than rewarded. Right? What would rewarding yourself as an individual look like, as opposed to sitting back and thinking there's something wrong with me? Because one of the statements I hear a lot is, I don't feel like myself. Right? I don't feel like myself. There's something off and I can't tell what it is. And that's for a very self-aware person. Others just go about it without saying anything.
Yeah.
How can we then reward ourselves for these transitions that we're going through?
First of all, I tell women and younger women, start planning what you want to do. I tell women, start planning for something that will match your energy. Okay? So for example, me, I've worked the high energy positions but as I was going through perimenopause, I thought I need to find something that will match my energy. I love to talk. I love being with people. I love helping people. I said, but how do I use this? So now I found this space as a menopause practitioner. I spend my day speaking to women and solving their problems. And it gives me so much joy. And I don't have to jump and I don't have to prove myself and I don't have to compete with anybody. It is just me, right? And I say, as you're approaching menopause, start thinking, what is it that I'm going to do with the skill set that I have? Or do I want to learn new skills? I've had to learn new skills. And it is such an amazing time to learn something new.
How? And yet you're struggling with the cognitive aspect.
You see, for example, it doesn't mean you have the inability to learn.
Yes.
It just means you're learning differently now. I will tell you, reading like you used to read when you were a teenager is out the window for most women. So you start, eyesight, cognitive, even just remembering.
Okay.
But then you find that your brain, as it changes, it's adapting to different ways of learning. So you either start doing audiobooks, visual. Now we're in the age of YouTube. So there are people who are visual learners. There are people who are audio learners. There are people who, so you'll find different ways to learn. But it doesn't mean you have stopped learning or having the ability to learn. So that worked for me is I could no longer read. And I mean, to do my certification, I read that textbook. It's this thick. I read it. And every time I'd read it, I'm like, wait a minute, what did I just read? And it's not stuff that's new, but then it's detail that you have to remember. So then I started doing lectures on YouTube, and that would stick. But that was always my superpower as a young student. But now it is heightened because the other one is not working too well.
Yes.
So you just learn that you can learn something new. You just learn differently because your brain is rewiring itself. But it is an amazing time to learn something new because then now, imagine it's like graduating from college all over again. You have your whole life ahead of you with a new skill.
Actually, with a new skill you do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now you're like, I can do another 20, 25 years of whatever new thing I have learned. It's very empowering.
Yeah. I'd like to take this opportunity to ask you to tell us a bit more about the Women's Health Cafe.
Well, the Women's Health Cafe also came about from conversations that I had with women. One was, I have a friend who was having out-of-body experiences. And you know how you know this person for so many years and you're thinking, something is very off. And it would get really, really ugly. And one day I asked myself, is this person going through menopause and we're not thinking about it?
Yeah.
Now I'll tell you why it wasn't as obvious. This person had a hysterectomy at 30. Okay? Nobody ever told them that anything would ever change.
Yeah.
And then, of course, considering the time it was, they were never put on hormone therapy. So they've lived their lives. Then 15, 20 years later, they start falling apart. And then I read and I said, how come nobody tells these women that, yes, you had a hysterectomy, but you may still have, at the natural age of menopause, you probably have some symptoms. So then it made the connection for me with her. And I said, how about we try hormone therapy? Because actually it was really bad. And then we tried hormone therapy. And then she was like, oh my goodness.
I am back.
I am back. I am back. And in fact, at that point, it was the workplace was becoming toxic. And it's not the workplace. It is internal. Yeah. Right? And then even trying to figure out how can I work on my own? I don't need to work with a team. The team is irritating me. I'm like, there's no way everybody can be irritating you. So then after that, I started talking to women. But then the need started, I started seeing it is bigger than, this was a special case, hysterectomy at 30. I started asking women questions. I realized women don't know their vulva from their vagina, from their urethra, from their, And I said, we need to start educating women. You can't advocate for yourself if you don't know anything, right? I met so many women who had gone through hysterectomies, for example, and I asked, so why did you have the hysterectomy? They really can't say it's because they were told, right?
They were told that it's a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, you're told, are you done having children? Yes. Okay, then you don't need it anymore. And so I started making it my business. So I created the space to start just by educating women about menopause because that is where my age mates were. Yeah. Right? And I would talk to them and many had a very hard time talking about it. It's kind of like, who talks? It's so taboo. Yeah. So sometimes we would be like, there she goes again talking about this menopause. I'm like, I will talk about it, but you will listen. You don't have to react. You don't have, but at least you heard something. And so when I started the group and I started, and it was just me, I said, okay, I've started a group, who wants to join? And the women came and they came and they came. I mean, we stay at full capacity. Now we have a waiting list, But it was because women were seeking answers. They were, and what I love about women is you empower one. They bring everybody. Yeah. So I think that's how the group just filled up because it's like, I have found a space that's safe, a space that we talk about it and we talk about it openly. Yeah. And of course, I set the tone, with, we're going to talk about anything here. There's no dumb question. There's no laughing or, making fun of each other because whatever question you have, somebody else has. So the group is on a WhatsApp group. There's 2,000 women at any one time. But I kind of felt like, okay, I need to have a plan beyond these 2,000 women because I can't manage more than 2,000 women, although I do have admins. Yeah. We then also discovered that we needed different groups to serve different purposes.
Yes, because there's different needs across ages. Yeah.
So while the many women were in menopause and perimenopause and whatever, we are also dealing with mental health issues. We are also going through divorces. Divorces rates, go up in this season. We had situations with people who are single parents and trying the co-parenting story. So we have one of those. We have one that talks about sex, because women were not talking about their sex life. They were not talking about, whether they're having it, how they're having it, if they're having it, if they should be having it, And, so we started talking about that. That is one of the most active groups. We have one that talks about exercise and fitness. Yeah. I love that group. And we have an amazing admin called Sifa, and she's helped by Ellie. She does an amazing job of motivating the ladies. And every day they have, they have to post their stats. And it's amazing. I love that group. What other groups do we have? We have one about metabolic health. Metabolic health affects all of us. However, it becomes more critical in the peri and the menopause period. We have a syndrome called the metabolic syndrome of menopause, because that's when the diabetes shows up, heart disease.
Speak a bit more about that, because I understand metabolism, but tell us a bit more about the metabolic. You call it the metabolic?
We call it MEDS, metabolic syndrome of menopause.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, what happens is when your hormones start declining, your hormones are like an orchestra. That's what we say. It's like an orchestra. So when the orchestra, the bass, the drum, the something goes off, other things go off. Now we have found that metabolism is one that is affected. So what happens with the metabolic syndrome of menopause and how to manage it is you can manage with food.
Yes.
You can. When women say, do I have to be on hormone therapy? No, you don't.
Manage with food.
There is advantages to being on hormone therapy, but can you control your symptoms and the different syndromes with your food and exercise? Yes, you can. Oh, yes, you can. In fact, what I tell women is when you're considering something like hormone therapy is to determine your long-term goal. My question is always, what's your long-term, what's your short-term? If your short-term goal is to treat your symptoms, you can do that. Food, exercise, you can manage that.
Yeah.
But if your long-term goal is, for example, I give the example of our blood vessels. Estrogen is our hormone of youth. So our blood vessels are kept soft and malleable and nice and, by estrogen. When estrogen starts declining, our blood vessels also start getting affected. So they get micro tears and things. Now, our bodies we have calcium going through our bodies. And calcium is what we call the band-aid for your body. Whenever there's an injury, calcium runs there to fix. So when your blood vessels start getting these little micro injuries, calcium runs there to fix it. And then when it's fixing it, what happens? It starts forming plaque, which then leads to heart attacks.
Yeah. So
I tell women, if your long-term goal is to protect your blood vessels from those micro tears in the first place, so that the plaque doesn't come and form, and it's a sequence, then hormone therapy is what you need, because that's the only way you'll keep your blood vessels young and supple and as long as you can. Of course, there's normal aging. So it's really now what your long and short-term goals are. So when women is that what the advantage of hormone therapy? Okay, I'll go ahead and do that. There are ways you can do, even naturally with your diet with phytoestrogens. But unfortunately, if we're not taught to eat that way as children, it becomes a very uphill task later.
When you're older.
Yeah, so I say, and those are the things I was saying that existed before. The systems that taught them to eat right from the get-go. So that when you're post-menopausal, you're not going looking for chia seeds all of a sudden. You are already eating them as a child. They're already part of your diet. When we talk about as we age, when your grandmother used to give you ngwashes and you made faces at them.
Now you're shopping.
Now you're looking for them because they were introduced to you as a child.
Yeah.
So that's what I say if we could just teach ourselves to eat right from being children, our menopause symptoms would be very different.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is this is a conversation that we need to be having cross-generationally.
Yes.
Because it's going to come to bite everybody at one point or another, both whether it's through andropause or menopause.
Yes.
Okay.
And remember, the andropausa is living with the menopausa.
Yeah, what does that actually look like? Chaotic, right? No wonder you're saying that divorces actually increase around this time.
Correct.
Now, how do we then create spaces? And probably, I don't know, what's your age? How old are the people who are supposed to join the Women's Health Cafe?
It has no age limit, by the way, because remember, this information is vital for everyone.
It's vital for
you're
everybody.
Either there, or you're heading there, or you've been there.
So what would you advise institutions to do to improve workplace well-being with this in mind? With specifically, because we can increase workplace well-being by changing different aspects. So how would you suggest that we not just have the conversations? What can workplaces do actively, practical tips that they can start this coming Monday that will help people be better with menopause in mind?
This coming Monday, the conversations that should be had is, first of all, look at your workplace. How many people in there are probably experiencing what it is? You'll find that quite a few, right? And then decide, how do we support these people? And let's listen to them. Sometimes it is something, like I said, as basic as, for example, there's a bank in town that insists that women have to wear high heels. Now,
until today?
Yes.
Okay.
And skirts.
Okay.
Okay. So now when you think about that, one, our musculoskeletal system is affected. You tend to trip and fall a lot. So there are these women who are forced to wear high heels. And it is one of the biggest fears is to fall. Now, remember, you have musculoskeletal issues. And in the musculoskeletal, we have bone density issues. So I'm here worried that I'll fall and I'll break a bone, right? And then if I break a bone, it's the one that will kill me. Whatever will kill me is not the broken bone, it is the effects of that broken bone. So it is now looking at your staff and thinking, how can we accommodate? And you see, we I think the other day there was the controversial decision for period days off and whatever.
Yes, the monthly. Yes, exactly. I remember the days off.
Days off. But those are the little things that you can do. With every age group, there are different problems, right? Even with the men. And the men are not talking, but they have a story to tell. Yeah. And I wish the more we speak as women, then they will also come out. I mean, I said it's ironic that I am a woman being called to talk about andropause.
Yes.
But because the men couldn't find some man to talk about the andropause, right? So it is what can we do to accommodate the majority, right? Or whoever is going through this. And then creating, I've worked in offices where they have committees, like groups of people who run a committee. So that when HIV was really big, they had those ones you can go and have a conversation about your occupation or something.
Yes, and peer counselors and all those other things.
Correct. So similar spaces, safe spaces, and having menopause champions, andropause champions within their staff. Who then people, men and women, can go and speak to and express how best to be accommodated at work. Some of them are very simple that can be all over. You can just decide it's a company policy. You can work indoors, you can work outdoors. Just decide what is comfortable for you on that day. Simple things like having water stations. Again, where the washrooms are. We talk about, I don't know if many offices do this, but you should have at least sanitary towels in the bathrooms. Allowing flex time for those who need it. And by the way, it doesn't even mean only women will need days off. I mean, men have mental days. They can get mental days too, because they also go through it. Just don't talk about it. But and then just have a menopause policy, an andropause policy, just the way you have a maternity policy.
Okay. And I think if you're running any institution, you've picked a couple of things today in terms of the conversations you need to be having at the office, the cross-generational impact that this has. And I think one of the things that I've loved is the fact that we need to understand there is strength. There is advantages that you can have from leveraging on this stage that these women are at, with the institutional history and everything else. So I'm hoping that this conversation has been helpful for you. Now, Kabugo, we have a game that we play. Why? Because we need to encourage conversations. And I like the way you're just looking at it as though you want to pick up.
Because from the first time I saw it, I asked, what is this wheel of fortune? And then I saw car seat. I said, oh no, I'm not going back there.
Okay. Tell me, where is there? Car seat, where is the car seat?
I thought it's something I'm going to win. I don't want to win a car seat.
Oh my gosh. That's such an interesting perspective. Yeah. Because for you, car seat is child.
Oh, please don't take me back there. No. So I'm very curious.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is just different categories in life that help us connect or disconnect. No, actually, not disconnect, but help us connect with people. Right? So you spin the wheel and then you'll pick a card from the category that you land on. And you're going to answer the question on that card.
And the categories are the colors. The color,
not just the colored, they have the titles. So
okay,
this is casset. This is, yeah.
Okay.
I'll hold that for you.
Now I'm nervous.
Mm-hmm.
Did it go a full circle?
You were about to land on the casset. Yeah, it did. Sort of. Mm-hmm.
All right.
So if not now, when?
So just pick one?
Yeah, you can pick that one on the top, okay?
Oh, I can pick it.
You can shuffle, you can
pick it. Try. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. If not now, when?
Mm-hmm.
Where would you go if you were to leave the country and never return for the rest of your life? That's a tough one.
Mm-hmm.
Where would I go? I know it would be a beach.
There would have to be a beach.
There would have to be a beach.
Mm-hmm.
There would have to be a beach with a garden.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe somewhere in the Caribbean, not Jamaica, because people will assume it's Jamaica. No.
Let it be known it is not Jamaica.
Not Jamaica.
Yes.
But somewhere, an island somewhere in the Caribbean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why there?
Because water calms me. Water calms me. And it can't be anywhere. They have, what are they called? What are they called? What did they have in Asia?
Oh, like tsunamis and things like those.
Yes. It can't be East Asia.
Okay.
It can't be Asia.
Yes, so more Caribbean.
Yes,
okay.
Although they do have the hurricanes. But I imagine I'll exit. I'll live so minimalist. I'll exit before that hurricane finds me.
Okay.
Yeah. So where? So why? Because of the water.
Yeah, the water calms me.
Okay. Yeah. Right. And then I kind of have this habit where whenever I'm watching water, I always imagine what's on the other side of that water. And it's how amazing it is that there's land again after that water. And people are living in skyscrapers, like just the other side. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I love that. The words that have come to mind are endless possibilities.
Yes.
And I think that's what I've also picked from this conversation, that no matter what your stage in life, there will be a place where you can learn more, enjoy more, discover more, and just be more. So I welcome you to continue having these conversations. This has been Connecting Generations. It's been a pleasure having you. Looking forward to more. Thank you.